Executive coaching is a form of leadership development that can make a real difference for large organizations and firms, and that has been dynamically developing in recent years. Human resources managers and learning and development managers use their best energies to pair their highest potential executives and leaders with executive coaches who have the right expertise, experience, and personal styles, and can help these executives on their leadership development journeys. Ironically, very often it's the most successful and the most promising managers that simply say no to executive coaching. In my 20 years of experience as a coach, the most frequent reasons that I met for this is that executives either claim that they are too busy for coaching, or we find out that they had bad experience with previous coaches, or we unearth some kind of deep-seated, profound personal reason why the coach's methodology and approach clashes with the personal vision of the prospective participant in coaching. When this happens, very often organizations label the manager uncoachable. In this video, I would like to share how it happens, how and why organizations sometimes label some managers uncoachable, how to look at those 3 reasons that I mentioned in a more constructive way, assuming that it is possible to support basically every single leader with executive coaching if we use the right approach. And finally, I would like to share with you a couple of practical tips, whether you are a coach, you are an HR or learning and development manager that supports coaching journeys in your organization, or maybe you are the prospective participant, her or himself. My name is Gabor Holch, Intercultural leadership coach, trainer, speaker, and author. I have been supporting the executives in Europe and Asia for the last 20 years, and currently I split my time between Europe and Asia. So before we move into the topic deeper, I would like to caution a little bit when you use the word uncoachable. If you go online, you are going to find an entire library of articles, books, and videos about uncoachable leaders, which will say a lot of things about what kind of person is uncoachable, why their attitude is the wrong kind of attitude, why their values are unfit for coaching, or even sometimes that they have the wrong kind of personality for coaching. But please remember that human thinking is subjective, and this reflects in the language we use. Unbelievable basically means I cannot believe it. Unacceptable means I refuse to accept it. All of these expressions reflect the beliefs and the approach of the person who speaks. Now, actually, it's undeniable, and I use the word undeniable, which means I will not deny it, that some people are harder to coach than others. But if it happens in an organization too often, it's a little bit like a doctor claiming that too many of his patients or her patients are uncurable, or a lawyer saying that many of the people she or he defends are indefensible. In which case, if it happens too often, there is a very good way to look for the reasons, and that place is the mirror. I may have a little bit more experience with the situation than most of the executive coaches, because first, I work a lot with companies in highly technical fields where typically managers are promoted to an executive position based on their performance track record, not necessarily for their leadership potential in terms of people skills. Industries such as automotive, manufacturing, banking, pharmaceuticals, and so forth. Moreover, when somebody is labeled uncoachable in an organization, and if I happen to be on their list of coaches, my whole profile just screams that I can take the challenge. I am male, I'm in my mid-50s, I started off as a junior diplomat specialized in crisis management. I am Eastern European, I wear a goatee. If people know enough about me, then they also know that I spent most of my adult life doing martial arts. So this is a profile that would be at the top of the speed dial at the companies that I work for when somebody has given trouble to HR or learning and development managers and a couple of previous coaches before. I personally do not believe in Uncoachable Leaders, and this comes from my own personal experience. I think coaching is a highly complex and systemic collaboration between coach and participant. By the way, I don't like the word coachee either, because I think participant describes the situation perfectly. And for example, in executive coaching, which makes most of my coaching experience, in addition to the coach and the participant, there is also a human resources management team or a learning and development management team. So you kind of have a triangular relationship. And at the beginning, in the sales phase of the coaching, when we are proposing coaching, it's usually the coach keeping in touch with the HR or the learning and development managers who connect the coach with the prospective participant. And later in the coaching phase, when the coach works directly with the participant, then the HR or the learning and development management team is still involved as the sponsors, as the supervisors of the coaching program. Now, when the coaching doesn't seem to work, I do not believe in blaming or trying to fix the coach, the participant, or even the HR and the learning and development team, because believe me, very often when I work directly with executives, that seems to be the suggestion. Instead, I look at it as a systemic situation where we have to analyze whether all of these parties work against one another or they are aligned and they are supporting each other towards a shared and mutually agreed goal. Now, the stakes in executive coaching projects can be very high because everybody's reputation, and in some cases even their career, is on the line here. If the coaching doesn't work out, the outcome is going to be that the coach is labeled an idiot or unreliable, and obviously the company will never call the coach again. HR or the learning and development department is going to be accused of not understanding how business works, and the prospective participant is going to be labeled as uncoachable, and sometimes that goes into official records. On the other hand, if the coaching relationship works out well, then the coach can work on reliable data aligned with the business objective of the company. The HR or L&D team gets the credit for aligning with the business objectives and actually playing the kind of business partner role, which is the dream of anybody who works as HR in a large organization. And the participant gets the necessary resources and support to move towards her or his personal leadership vision, rather than getting a nervous tick every time she hears executive coaching in the future. Now, as I mentioned, in my experience, when we scratch the surface a little bit and we find out why the coaching relationship didn't work out, sometimes already in the sales, in the acquisition phase, I usually find one of these three big reasons. Number one, the executive claims she has neither the time or the energy to do coaching. The second one, we find out that previous experience with coaching in the company hasn't been positive. And the third one is we find out some kind of profound incompatibility between the proposed coaching method and the way people want to work in that company. So let's look at these reasons one by one, and let's see how companies can work towards a solution in each of these situations. Let's look at the situation where the executive claims she doesn't have the time to do coaching. And when I do leadership communication training, I share this methodology with my participants where we listen to what somebody says, underline the keyword, and then respond to that. And the keyword in this case is time. A manager who is important enough so that the company spends thousands or even $10,000s of dollars, euros, or whatever it is on coaching her or him is by definition a busy person. So the key here is timing. The L&D team, the HR team, or the coach, her or himself, has to be very careful about the timing when they propose the coaching to this manager. Now, the last couple of years haven't been easy for anybody. When it is not COVID, then it is a stock market crisis. When it's not a stock market crisis, then it's a supply chain crisis. So the managers that we coach go through a lot of firefighting these days. And when at the wrong time, the L&D team or the HR team proposes coaching, even with the most helpful intention, These managers can feel like somebody who, they get the phone call from the car dealership that they have to take the car to the garage for servicing for 1 or 2 days, exactly at the time when they have to commute, they have to drive to visit clients, they have to pick up kids from school, and they have to help out the grandparents with picking up some things. However reasonable the request is, the person will postpone it if at all possible. Speaking of the solution, when an executive dismisses coaching because they claim that they are too busy, the most important thing is you must give a very good reason to the executive to listen to the coaching proposition if you really want their attention. This is why 7 Habits starts with begin with the end in mind, and in his legendary TED Talk, Simon Sinek shared with us the start with why methodology. Now, when somebody's shirt is on fire, there are 2 basic ways to grab their attention. One of them is fear, and the other one is hope. Fear is the kind of communication when you send a message that unless this person takes coaching seriously, something bad is going to happen to them. However, a little bit later in this video, I'm going to share with you why you have to be very careful to propose coaching in this way. Threat is usually not the best way to build trust and cooperation with somebody. Now, a more positive and constructive way to approach a coaching proposition is to assume that anybody who is too busy to do coaching is struggling with time management, or at least has a clear idea where they want to get with their next project, with their next promotion, with getting that bonus, and they are distracted by these kind of trivial tasks that make us busy on a daily basis. Most leaders, most of the time, try to ascend to the next level of their leadership development, and if they are busy, basically they feel that busy work every single day, these little trivial tasks just take away time and energy from the really important things that they have to do to develop towards their next stage. What coaches, HR, or learning and development people can do is have a discussion, get a little bit of time, even if it's 15 minutes, with the executive in question, ask them about their top concerns, their top challenges, then go back and do a little bit of research, how coaching can help and which coach is the best one to help in this kind of specific situation, how coaching can specifically support the leadership development goal that this executive is working towards. Then go back and present it with the basic message: we are here to help, we heard you out, we know what you are trying to achieve, this is how coaching can help, let us help you. Now let's look at the second possible reason, which is that executives resist coaching because they had a bad experience with coaches before, and especially for the coaches themselves, this can be very painful to hear. But what we must remember here is coaching is a profession, coaches are people, so it is as hard to find a coach that delivers the expected results as it is hard to find a great dentist, building contractor, or lawyer. I don't know what is your personal philosophy about how hard it is to find somebody who can deliver the results that you expect in any of these professions. It can be 20%, it can be up to 30% if you're an optimist. But if you had experience with finding a specialist for any of these jobs, you know it's really hard, and you know that the stakes are basically against you. There is a higher chance of making a mistake than getting the right person the first time. And learning and development, HR, and sometimes purchasing professionals, they are absolutely terrified that they are going to make this mistake. They waste the company's time and money, and maybe their own careers is going to be on the line because of it. Not only that, but during the pandemic, there was a proliferation of professionals from all kinds of industries, including consulting, including training, including education, certifying as coaches, and even internal coaches in companies. And now it seems that suddenly everybody is a coach. And many of these people are excellent coaches, but even if the coach, her or himself, is great, coaching, again, is a complex systemic cooperation whose success depends on the right timing, as we just mentioned, the coach's profile, including expertise, experience, and style, and a personal chemistry between the coach and the participant. When companies want to overcome this challenge, the key is that the creation of the coaching program must be an honest and open conversation. People who merit the resources, the time, the money, the input that a high-level executive coaching program requires, they are successful and they are confident. Whatever happens, they want it to be their decision. Part of that conversation must be collecting what worked and what didn't work in previous coaching programs or in previous coaching experiences. So maybe the coaching program was not a complete disaster. Maybe the executive didn't like the process, didn't find it as useful as she or he expected, but there was still some nugget of development, of success, and then we can ask the executive, what was the part that you liked about it, and try to replicate that in a new coaching program. And as for the part that the executive didn't like, it has to be a very honest conversation, because some of the things that come up can be highly sensitive, including gender, including race, including personal style, or who knows, maybe the learning and development team asks an executive what she didn't like about the coaching program, and the answer will be, actually what I didn't like is the way you, the learning and development people, manage the entire coaching process. So whoever has this conversation must be open to discussing any of these challenges and finding alternative solutions to them. And finally, but most importantly, one way to make sure that the participant feels in control of the executive coaching program that is supposed to support her own leadership development is a so-called chemistry call. This is a short call between the coach and the prospective participant. There is no coaching content, it's just a conversation so that people can discuss what the coaching should deliver, what are the expectations, and can have this kind of three-dimensional feeling about each other, because human communication, human collaboration is very much about nonverbal communication and the fit between two people. And importantly, I think this chemistry call must happen before the company made a commitment to work with the specific coach or coaching organization. The outcome of the chemistry call is a simple yes or no from the prospective participant. If it's a no, I would say no questions asked, because very often we cannot explain why we trust or don't trust somebody. And if it's a yes, then we move forward, and already in the first coaching session, we don't start the collaboration from zero. Now, sometimes in an early phase, and very often it happens in the acquisition phase where the coach and the company hasn't even signed a contract yet, but sometimes it happens in an early phase of the coaching itself, especially if the chemistry call didn't take place or wasn't well prepared enough. We find out the executive resists the coaching program for some reason, which is almost too hard to explain, which is extremely personal, extremely deep, and only comes up after the parties have worked with each other for a couple of hours. And what we have to understand here is, as opposed to roles like a specialist or a manager, leadership is a very, very holistic genre to which people must bring their entire self, their positive and negative energies, and their honest, authentic leadership style. Participants in executive coaching are self-confident, successful people who got to that level because they are who they are, together with all of the characteristics and the personal traits that we like about them and we don't like about them. Now, behaviorally speaking, many of the high-level successful managers are a little bit extreme. You probably know that if you work with them. If you follow the work of psychologist Gabor Holch, also a Hungarian, we share a first name but nothing else, you know that he says that some of the most formidable human performances are a result of mild trauma in earlier life. So basically, for example, if somebody in childhood or in youth went through financial insecurity, they want to pad their life with the resources that make them feel safe. Or for example, if somebody in an early stage of life craved for attention but didn't get it, then they try to get attention, then they try to fulfill this need through their executive career. Now, if this is true or not, and to what extent, I don't know exactly, because I'm not an expert. But let's assume this is true, and let's assume that this makes many bosses, high-performing executives, a little bit one-sided if you look at it from the perspective of, let's say, the psychological mainstream. One thing that you will very soon find out is that successful people do not want to change many of the characteristics that their environment wishes they would change. HR very often wishes that a specific high-performing manager were a better team player, but when you talk to this manager, then you will find out she says the secret to her success is a sharp and tough focus on measurable results. Bosses may wish that a sales director would have more detail orientation, but actually what you will hear is the secret of success to this sales director is having a wide network in 3 continents and constantly working it in social events. So detail orientation is, sorry, not one of my priority areas. Or just the opposite. The company may wish for a little bit more flexibility from a manager whose outspoken secret to success is perfectionist attention to every single detail. And if the coaching outspokenly aims at changing these behavioral traits, very often self-confident managers will just simply say no. Situations like this can make everybody completely stuck because, very simply put, the company offers help to an executive who doesn't want that kind of help. But there is a way out of it, and this is going to be perhaps the most practical suggestions that I deliver in this video. Never propose coaching as a fix to a behavioral problem. Again, whether you're the coach, her or himself, who is proposing coaching at a company, whether you are the human resources manager or a learning and development professional, never propose coaching as a fix to a problem in the person's behavior, whether if it's too much detail attention, inflexibility, too much grit, a tough attitude. Coaching is not a fix. And if you see somebody else proposing coaching in this way, please correct them. If you are at a meeting, correct them verbally. If you see it in a document, redraft it so that coaching is proposed in a way that is intended. Coaching must be a voluntary form of collaboration between coach and participant, or in some cases, coach, company, and participant, where the participant provides the personal leadership vision or goals, and the coach and HR or learning and development teams provide the resources and the support in order for the executive to achieve those leadership goals. If you are the prospective participant yourself, it can happen that otherwise the coaching solution is fine, but the way others present it, it can be the coaching company or it can be your own company, because it almost sounds like they propose coaching to fix you. And in this case, there is no problem. If otherwise the coaching solution looks okay, you can mentally re-script the story from fix to opportunity. You are given a coach, you are given time, you are given resources. You can clarify your goal in your mind and you can find out how to turn those resources into a better way, a faster way, a more efficient or even just less stressful way of achieving those leadership goals yourself. Coaches are there to help you. Coaching is always an open-ended conversation. As a participant, you can always guide it the way that most suits your personal leadership development goals. Now, the easiest and clearest way of having these conversations for everybody is a very simple behavioral model where we construct a simple if-then sentence in order to clarify the goals of the coaching and to convince people of the merits of the coaching. Whether you are a coach who is trying to convince HR, whether you're a HR who is trying to convince the executive, or whether you are the executive who is trying to convince yourself, these if-then sentences actually work very well to clarify and convince the parties involved. Examples can be, if there is no change in your current performance, you are going to be okay for the next couple of years, but the breakthrough that you are planning is not going to happen. In the words of probably the most famous executive coach in the world, Marshall Goldsmith, what got you here will not get you there. Now, this is a little bit closer to the threat side of the equation, so we can rephrase the sentence and we can create a coaching vision basically saying, if you work with this coach, these are the potential benefits and this is how it's going to support your personal leadership vision. Again, what we are working towards here is all the 3 parties playing the role that they are intended to. The coach supports the personal leadership vision of the participant and the business goals of the organization. Learning and development teams, they support the participant in their leadership journey, and the participant, her or himself, gets value out of the coaching and realizes their leadership vision faster, easier, with less stress, whether it is a promotion, it is meeting a sales target, building a new team, or adopting to a new work culture because they were transferred to a different country. There was a merger, an acquisition, or simply a change of vision in the company itself. Now, in every video, I try to recommend a tool or a method that is the most helpful regarding the topic that we are discussing. And in this case, it is the book from which I took the if-then methodology, which is Charles Duhigg's, I don't know if it's clear enough, but The Power of Habit. This is one of the books that a couple of years ago I sent as a New Year gift to all of my clients worldwide. And I got very, very good feedback. They said it was extremely useful. There is another book that I can recommend, which is also about the kind of habit change we are talking about here, which is Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg. I am going to put the links to both of the books into the show notes. But if you are like me, you like going a little bit deeper, even if it takes a little bit more reading, I think you are going to like the Duhigg book better than Tiny Habits. I hope these insights and recommendations have been useful. I wish you all the best with your coaching journey. And if you want to go a little bit further and work with me as a coach, as a trainer, as an advisor, as a speaker, then please check the show notes. You can join one of my free webinars and you will find the links to reach out to me and send me your questions about coaching, about leadership development, about intercultural leadership skills. Find me online and drop me a line.